An Arthur Thanksgiving is not a bad special, but I feel like there was maybe too much going on, that we never truly got to enjoy one part of the narrative, and unfortunately the main focus is something that I'm not a big fan of in general. This was released in 2020, written by Peter Ferland, and it's Thanksgiving. And there are various different parts of the narrative, but the main focus is Pal goes missing. And honestly, Pal is adorable, but I'm not a big fan of narratives that focus on Pal. Even less so when we experience things from Pal's perspective, and that happens quite a bit. So the main focus is not something I personally enjoy. If you like the episodes of Arthur where Pal is the protagonist or one of the main characters, and we get to have his perspective, then I think you will enjoy that aspect. I think it's done quite well. We get to see other dogs. That side of it gives it a bit of action, and it's not too bad, but for me personally it doesn't work. There are a few other things going on. Mr. Ratburn's class are doing a float. I feel like having a school float on Thanksgiving Day seems like a bad idea, since it's meant to be about family. Let me know if that's a common thing. Obviously we don't have Thanksgiving in the UK, but do you normally, aside from, the big parades, but do schools usually put on Thanksgiving parades on Thanksgiving Day when they're meant to be with their families? I just feel like, I don't know, my equivalent would be doing that on Christmas Day, and that would just be weird. But we never really got to enjoy that side of it. It did mean that we got to have other characters in there, a lot of Arthur's friends, which I really appreciated, but it almost felt like they were trying to give us a bit of an extra dimension to the narrative, and we never really got to enjoy it properly. We also have Aunt Minnie, who has visited, and DW and Bud call her Aunt Meanie, because she's not really sure how to treat children, and straight away I didn't like her. Well, that's a lie. Initially, when she said to Arthur, there's nothing worse than hugging a stranger, because Arthur hadn't seen her since he was a teeny baby. And I thought, oh, that's really nice, that's respectful. That's a really good way to start a new relationship with somebody, not forcing yourself onto them. But after that, her character quickly went downhill, and DW and Bud point this out. So she's got some learning to do. But honestly, I feel like everything's so disjointed, and the main narrative with Pal does kind of connect certain aspects of it, but because I don't like that part of the narrative, I really didn't care. Honestly, I feel like it would have been better if most of it was set in the Reed household and various problems that arise throughout the day, during the meal, various other things. So it's not amazing, but I didn't mind it. I think the reason I didn't mind it most of all is because I finished watching all 25 seasons of Arthur, and I'm just thankful that there were a few specials that I still had to see. This was one of them. It doesn't feel very Thanksgiving-y. It doesn't feel like a very well developed narrative. It kind of feels like 4 or 5 people have written this, and then they've tried to mash the stories together, and it doesn't work very well for me. I will admit that the Pal aspect, it carries things quite smoothly. That part of it's well written, but it's like there are dangling threads from the main narrative, and it just doesn't work well. So I liked bits of it, but I feel like it would have been better to have either more focus on the main narrative, even if I wouldn't have loved it, because I'm not a big fan of Pal as a protagonist. I would have appreciated the better crafted narrative, or to have separate Thanksgiving episodes, including the other separate narratives. The Aunt Minnie one would have been a really good segment on its own. So an Arthur Thanksgiving is very disjointed, but it's watchable. And as an Arthur fan, there were certainly things in it that made me smile.